Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we are pitting Dr. Manhattan against Molecule Man. And I don't know who Molecule Man is.
Well, he's like Dr. Manhattan. He was once a man who was given godlike power. In some ways, these two characters are even more powerful than the Spectre versus Galactus fight that we had earlier. So it's going to be really interesting to, improvise our speculation on how the match will go later on in this episode, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Dr. Manhattan has been one of our most requested characters, I think.
Yeah.
Usually people ask to put him against, Franklin Richards or the Beyonder. So I'm curious as to why you chose Molecule Man, but we'll get into that later on.
Well, it's an easy, quick answer. Franklin Richards is powerful, but he's just a kid. And I don't believe he's as powerful as Molecule Man, who I think is as equally powerful as Dr. Manhattan. So it's as simple as that.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea how this speculation will be going either. It's going to be ridiculous.
But it's going to be fun.
Before we get into that, we're going to break down the news from the past week. We're going to be talking about The Flash and the Shazam sequel getting release dates. Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to talk about trailers newly released for Superman Red Son, the animated film, and the Stargirl television series.
Yeah, no Marvel news once again. I feel like I say that a lot lately, but, one of these days, guys, they'll come through for us.
That's right. Marvel always letting people down.
They've done far enough to endear themselves to me that I can forgive them for the occasional letdown.
Excuses are like elbows.
You mean assholes?
Yes.
They're like you?
Everyone has two. I don't know. Fuck you.
As always, our segment times are listed in our episode description, so go ahead and check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
But before we get into the news, we want to give a quick shout out to Susan Hensel, who was randomly selected to win the What's It and Spider-Ham original artwork drawn by Nathan Santasteven for our annual holiday charity fundraiser.
Yeah, that duel matchup was last week's episode, and Susan Hensel was kind enough to donate to our fundraiser for Pop Culture Classroom, and she helped us reach $100 in total that we raised for that organization. So thank you to everybody who donated. This was probably our most successful fundraiser yet.
Oh, it definitely was, and all of that money is going towards a great cause, so thanks once again, everyone who donated.
Just a heads up for those who are curious about this podcast status with Rotten Tomatoes, the site currently has their critic applications closed until March 1st. So that's a bummer. So we can't officially apply again until springtime, but at that point we will be more than ready. So
in the meantime, if you guys haven't rated us, this is probably the last time we'll ever ask for it. Feel free to keep rating us at your leisure. It helps spread the word of the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys. Now that that's done,
quick, to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, which trailer did you prefer between Black Widow and Wonder Woman 1984, and why?
This was a great question. I was really looking forward to seeing what the answers were going to be because both the Black Widow and Wonder Woman 1984 trailers were pretty amazing in different ways, and it was cool to see which one resonated more with you guys.
Our first honorable mention goes to Red Hood, who chose Wonder Woman 1984 because he can't wait to see Diana's story continue.
Jeremy Orr also gave the answer of Wonder Woman 1984 because he said that Marvel can eat a dick.
That's right!
Which is my least favorite answer out of all of these.
That's my favorite one.
That's like uncalled for. Have I ever told DC to eat a dick?
Dude, yeah, you have. It's on our website.
I guess I say it every day of my life. Fair enough.
Harrison Fox gave the answer of Black Widow, saying that it looked like a great spy movie.
Dustin Balcom gets honorable mention saying that he preferred the Wonder Woman 1984 trailer because he prefers more fantastical heroes over street-level heroes.
Senefarumand gave the answer of Black Widow, saying that Taskmaster is his favorite villain.
Yeah, Taskmaster is going to be freaking awesome in that movie. Irani Gami from Instagram gave the answer of Black Widow because he says that Wonder Woman looks like it's full of plot holes. I think specifically in regards to the story revolving around Steve Trevor.
But he doesn't even know what the plot is yet.
I mean, obviously, if this movie takes place before Justice League, there already is a plot hole. So yeah, he's not wrong there.
I don't believe you. It's going to make sense story-wise, trust me. Calvin John Della Merced gave the answer of Wonder Woman 1984, saying that it won 501 out of 1,000 matches. in the simulation he ran. And Wonder Woman's win came down to Black Widow's death, meaning there's no future Black Widow movies, and the fact that he's a DC fanboy.
Oh, okay, so it was a biased simulation. Okay.
No.
Honorable mention goes to Matt Estes, who said he preferred Black Widow because the action scenes and the white suit looked awesome, and Wonder Woman can't web sling like she did in that trailer.
I think she can because she just did.
Oh my god.
Ken Johnson gave the answer of Wonder Woman 1984, saying that it has the promise of more content. You can make more Wonder Woman films because the main character isn't killed off, as we know Black Widow is in Endgame.
Well, you can still make prequels of Black Widow, even though Scarlett Johansson will be getting older.
Yep, doesn't make any sense.
Caleb Mitch Mattingly gave the answer of Black Widow because he said he's been waiting forever for a Black Widow solo film.
Yeah, he likes the mystique around the character in the other Marvel films. Jonathan Hazelton gave the answer of Wonder Woman 1984 because visually it looks a lot cooler than Black Widow. And
Does
I agree.
it though?
Yes.
Does it though?
Yeah, it does.
And the final honorable mention goes to Adam Spees, who said that he preferred Black Widow because he was underwhelmed by the Wonder Woman trailer. Now, for those of you keeping score at home, that's 6 votes for Wonder Woman and 6 votes for Black Widow. So the winner of this week's No Prize goes to Lou613 from Instagram for his answer of Black Widow. Black Widow wins.
Damn it!
Black Widow got 7 votes over Wonder Woman's 6. And Lou said that he prefers the Black Widow trailer because it gave off heavy vibes reminiscent of the Winter Soldier movie. And I really like that answer. I thought that exact same thing. And the Winter Soldier is one of my favorite movies made by Marvel Studios. So that answer connected with me personally, and that's why it wins the No Prize.
Yeah, congrats on Black Widow's win.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Next time, show up, DC fans. Come on.
There's so few of you out there, though.
No, there's not. Shut up.
Congrats again to Lou613. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. With that out of the way,
on to the news. So the Wrap revealed last week, I think it was the Wrap that broke the news for both release dates, that Shazam 2 and The Flash will both be released in 2022, with Shazam coming out first on April 1st.
And that's just a few months after the Black Adam movie that comes out with Dwayne Johnson, correct?
Yeah, I think it's like less than 3 months later, because the Black Adam film is coming out around Christmas of 2021.
My first thought was that it's going to be slightly confusing for the Shazam movie to come out so close to the Black Adam film because people are going to notice that the two characters are very similar. They have, similar power sets, and Black Adam is a Shazam villain after all. So if Black Adam is not the main villain for the Shazam sequel,
which he may be,
people are going to be wondering where he is.
I'm sure he'll make some kind of appearance in the film, whether it's a cameo, whether he becomes part of the Shazam family to take on Sivana and Mr. Mind. Who knows? Eventually he could probably make his way from a member of the Shazam family to becoming a villain. We don't know anything about the story yet. Ultimately, I think this is probably a smart move on Warner Brothers' behalf because it's going to associate the Zachary Levi Shazam character with The Rock, who's just like box office gold. The first Shazam film was such a good film, but it didn't make any money box office wise. It made a profit because it was so cheap to produce, but not enough people saw it, I think.
It made enough to greenlight a sequel.
Well, obviously, but I think having the Black Adam film come up before the next Shazam film will only increase the hype for it.
That's true.
If it's successful. This all hinges on the success of Black Adam.
Yeah, if it totally flops, what are they going to do?
No one's going to want to see the Shazam sequel if that happens. Ultimately, I think that this shows Warner Brothers has a lot of faith in Black Adam for them to be doing something like this.
Well, it is going to have the JSA in it, so
I can't wait to see Hawkman, honestly. I'm probably looking forward more to seeing Hawkman than I am Black Adam, like realized on the silver screen. And I'm looking forward to seeing Zachary Levi as the Shazam character again. The film's still quite a ways off, so I imagine we won't be seeing anything until probably summer of 2021, but I'm still looking forward to it. I'm glad that it was announced, finally. I've been waiting for this. Again, I really liked the film. I liked it more than Justice League, for sure. And I think Ezra Miller could only hope to be as funny as Zachary Levi, because, he went for it in Justice League, but the more time has passed and the more I reflect on the film, the more I really wish they didn't go that route with the character.
You mean like the silly route?
Yes.
Well, you needed some kind of comedic relief for that film. All the characters were pretty serious, except for maybe Aquaman.
And that's a valid point. And that's probably why they chose to go that direction. But I'm wondering how that's going to translate into his own solo film now. Is it going to be a comedy? Is it going to be something closer to like Man of Steel?
Well, I mean, the director, what's his name? Andy Muschietti?
Yeah.
He directed the It films. I think he knows how to balance humor well with other genre elements.
I think we talked a lot about him when it was first announced that he was directing.
Yeah.
I guess Christina Hodson is still on board to write this film. She also wrote Birds of Prey, so we'll see how that film goes in February.
Yeah.
Right now, Birds of Prey is tracking to make about the same opening weekend as Shazam. So that's not like the greatest news. Hopefully it's going to start tracking a little bit better soon. But
it seems like it was made for less money than Shazam was too, though.
It does. Yeah, for sure. Moving on to other news, the first trailer for Superman Red Son, DC's next animated film, came out on Monday. And it looks pretty interesting. To be honest, I've never actually read the miniseries. I think it was written by Mark Miller. So I'm not too familiar with the storyline, though I understand the gist of it being Superman, landing in Russia in the Soviet Union instead of, Smallville, Kansas. Mm-hmm. Which in itself is pretty interesting. So when you see it kind of like realized on the screen, it definitely has me intrigued. And I've heard such great things about it. And I think it's on DC Universe. So I definitely plan on reading it before this film comes out, just so I could, talk about the comparisons between the film and the comic.
It looks pretty damn action-packed. It's really cool to see like these alternate Cold War versions of all the DC characters.
Yeah, like the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And especially Batman. He's just wearing like this Russian fur cap. I'm not sure what it's called. Mm-hmm. But it's always fun to see, Batman and Superman go head-to-head with each other. We actually get to see all three members of the Trinity in this trailer. Wonder Woman is there, and her suit is darker as well. It kind of makes you wonder if she adopted the American flag as her colors initially because Superman was there and she was inspired by him. Now it looks like, she's inspired by Superman's darker colors.
Now, this film takes place in a world where Russia won the Cold War, correct? With Superman's help?
No, I think it takes place during the Cold War. I don't think it's after the Cold War at all. I think it's during the height of the Cold War in the 80s. But yeah, it definitely looks like the US has a hard time going up against Superman. It mentions in the trailer that he's like taken over almost all of Western Europe as part of Russia.
Yeah.
We get to see him chatting with Joseph Stalin. I guess he's a character in this film, which shouldn't be surprising, I guess. But I'm definitely curious to see like who the villain of the storyline is. Is it going to be Stalin? Is it going to be Batman? Superman's getting shot with a lot of red lasers in this trailer, which makes me wonder if another Kryptonian shows up.
I think the thing that surprised me most about this trailer was the characterization of Superman. It doesn't feel like Superman.
Ultimately, if I had to guess, I would say by the end of the film, he probably has a change of heart and, becomes sort of the figure of hope instead of the figure of communism and oppression. I'm sure he becomes much more of a hopeful character.
Well, he does say at the end that he's going to go save the world. So he's still portrayed in a heroic light.
Yeah. This is kind of awkward talking about it. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there who have actually read the storyline notice a lot more things than I am just from this trailer. But I'm looking forward to it. DC's animated films of late have been really good. I really liked Batman Hush. I really liked The Death of Superman. I really liked Wonder Woman Bloodlines. So
yeah, those are all great. I'm not sure when this movie drops. I don't think the trailer revealed a release date, but it's got to be within the next few months or so here. It'll be interesting to revisit the next trailer once you've read the story and we could watch the trailer with the context.
For sure. I don't think they release too many trailers for these animated films. So.
They usually release 2 of them.
Yeah, and the next one will probably be right up against the release date. The other trailer that was released this past week was for the Stargirl television series, which is debuting on both the DC Universe platform and the CW network.
Right, and this show is definitely coming out sometime in the second quarter of 2020, so after March.
Now, the trailer starts off with Luke Wilson's character, Pat Dugan. He's Stripe from the comic.
Yeah.
He was the Star-Spangled Kid's sidekick of sorts.
Well, I mean, I didn't even know Luke Wilson was going to be in the show until I saw the trailer. Like, I vaguely remember discussing the fact that Joel McHale was going to be Starman, but to see, like, all these comedic actors show up in this series makes me really damn interested. Like, I went from, like, a level 2 interest to, like, a level 7. Because Amy Smart is also in the show.
Dude, this cast is amazing. It's also going to have, like, Lou Ferrigno Jr. He's going to be Rex Tyler, Hourman. The JSA is going to be a big component, I guess, of this show.
Interesting.
You could see, like, at the beginning of the trailer when Luke Wilson's like running into like this mansion. I'm assuming it's like the headquarters of the Justice Society of America. You could see green flames and all these other like powers just like being tossed about. It looks like the destruction of like the old Justice Society of America. And I wouldn't be surprised if like one of the major like plot points of the series is sort of Stargirl kind of bearing the torch for rebuilding that team.
And establishing the legacy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We get to see the first Star-Spangled Kid, you know, played by Joel McHale in the trailer. Of course, I think Luke Wilson's character refers to him as Starman. In the comics, Stargirl got her mantle from the Star-Spangled Kid. That was her name for a long time before she switched to Stargirl.
I thought she got the rod from Jack Knight, Starman.
Yeah, she's carrying his rod. That was his rod that he built. Jack Knight, of course, was the son of the original Starman, Ted Knight, who invented the cosmic rod.
Now, Stargirl didn't always have the Star Rod, right? Prior to her obtaining the rod and taking up Starman's mantle, she was known as Star-Spangled Kid, and she had different powers.
Yeah, she had some, like, power gadgets, like a power belt, I think it was, and gloves. She found them. They were made by her stepfather, Pat Dugan, who, again, is being played by Luke Wilson. And it looks like by the end of this, you know, she's sort of enlisting his help to help her in her own burgeoning superhero career.
Can you give us a quick overview of what Stargirl's powers are, what she can do with the Star Rod?
She could generate like force fields. She could shoot energy blasts. She can fly. She kind of like sits on it kind of like a witch's broom when she wants to like go through the air.
That's cool.
Ultimately, when you see characters like Luke Wilson and Joel McHale, you think it's going to be like a comedy. I didn't really get that vibe from this trailer.
No, it looks fairly serious.
Yeah, it looks much more like a teen drama. And, you know, since it's on the CW, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the angle they're going.
I'm just like waiting for Will Ferrell to show up or something. Because I love all of these actors. Luke Wilson has been in some hilarious movies, and so is Joel McHale. It's really shaping up, I think, to be one of the best DC superhero ensemble casts of all time, as a matter of personal preference.
Oh yeah, it's by far like the most renowned cast that they've ever had on the CW network. These aren't CW actors, you know.
Yeah, they're film actors.
For the most part. But that brings us to our question of the week.
Who has been the best cast Marvel or DC hero on television, and why? Now, there have been a lot of great cast superheroes for both Marvel and DC throughout their television history. We're looking for the one that stood out to you the most. Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
I think that does it for all of the news. Let's get into our main event where we pit Dr. Manhattan against Molecule Man. Okay, Dr. Manhattan against Molecule Man. Two godlike beings facing off against each other.
One of them dressed, one of them naked.
Oh, that's a strategy I will be using.
Well, how is that a strategy?
You ever fight a grown man naked?
No.
Would you want to?
No.
Exactly. Touche. Of course, we're doing this matchup now because not only is the last issue of Doomsday Clock coming out tomorrow, but also because the Watchmen television series on HBO just came to its conclusion, in which Dr. Manhattan played a big role.
Yeah, there's never been a better time to learn about Dr. Manhattan. And Molecule Man recently, a few years ago, had a big role to play in the Secret War storyline, the original Secret War storyline as well. So he's a big Marvel character, if you know your Marvel villains.
If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we always like to give a breakdown of each character's powers and abilities, just so that you're more familiar with them when we pit them against each other.
And the way we find out who would win between the two characters is through their statistics. We take those numbers from the official Marvel Power Rankings grid and then extrapolate the DC stats from that criteria, and we run the figures through a probabilistic model known as a Monte Carlo simulation. What that does is it randomizes their stat numbers, accounting for all the variables in battle, and it compares the numbers against each other 1,000 times, simulating 1,000 matches.
And from those simulations, we get a percentage of wins. Now, no one character ever wins 100% of the time. You know, there's always a way in story for writers to find a way for Batman to defeat Superman. And the variation in our stats through the Monte Carlo simulation accounts for that occasional happenstance.
So it's a very mathematical, scientific approach to the question of who would win. Jonathan and I do this because we're both heavily biased in the Marvel and DC camps, you know? So this is the most objective way we could think of, and it was a method used by the Deadliest Warrior television show that used to be on Spike TV.
But of course, before we run all the simulations, as I mentioned earlier, we like to give a background of the characters' histories and abilities. I think it's my turn to go first with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I think so.
So I do want to start off with a spoiler warning for Watchmen. Dr. Manhattan has recently appeared in other comics, such as Before Watchmen and Doomsday Clock, but most of his story exists within the self-contained story of Watchmen, which has a twist ending that I hate ruining for anyone who hasn't read the book or seen the movie. So if you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening now, go to the chapter timecodes in our episode description, and skip ahead to Molecule Man's backstory.
I mean, I think most people have either read Watchmen or seen the movie, so I don't think you're spoiling anything for too many people.
You're probably right, but I think there's a lot of Marvel fans who may not, be too familiar with the Watchmen comic.
Marvel fans don't care.
They should. They absolutely should.
We don't care about this. We skip ahead to the Marvel bios anyway.
Oh, gosh. So if you're still listening, you probably already know that Jonathan Osterman was born in 1929 in Germany to a Jewish family. He and his family immigrated to America when John was a young boy in order to escape the National Socialist Party that had come into power. John's father was a watchmaker who trained John to follow in his profession until 1945, when John was 16 and America dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. John's father told John their profession was outdated since time was relative, and encouraged his son to study nuclear science in school, which John did when he went to Princeton University, graduating with a PhD in atomic physics. By 1959, John began studying intrinsic fields of physical objects at the Gila Flats Research Base in the Arizona desert.
What's an intrinsic field?
It's a term that Watchmen made up. I think it's meant to represent strong nuclear force.
Oh, the force that holds matter together?
That holds nuclei together.
Okay, interesting.
It was there that John met Jenny Slater, a fellow scientist with whom John began a romantic relationship. Jenny's wristwatch broke during an excursion to an amusement park, which John promised to fix. It was just a matter of reassembling the components in the correct sequence. John left the repaired watch in an intrinsic field generator one day, and when he went to grab it, he was accidentally locked in the test chamber and his atoms were torn apart in front of his colleagues. Over the next several months, strange apparitions flickered around the research base. Scientists and custodians reported seeing a floating, glowing nervous system, then a circulatory system, then a partially muscled skeletal system screaming. The base was thought to be haunted until the fully formed Jonathan Osterman, now blue, bald, and glowing, formed in the base's cafeteria during the workday. Upon his reformation, John began experiencing time non-linearly and exhibited other superpowers that made him a viable asset of the United States government, whom gave John the codename Dr. Manhattan for the ominous associations the title would have to America's enemies. John chose the symbol of a hydrogen atom to represent him, burning the mark into his forehead. At the request of the then President Richard Nixon, Dr. Manhattan intervened in the Vietnam War, securing a victory for the US within 3 months, which gave Nixon the leverage to repeal the 22nd Amendment and serve up to 5 terms as president, all the way into the 1980s when Cold War tensions with the Soviet Union grew hot under the potential threat of Dr. Manhattan's power. By this time, costumed vigilantism had been outlawed by the Keene Act of 1977, making Dr. Manhattan one of the few superheroes to operate legally since he operated under the direction of the US government. Since he was a deterrent to most international conflict, Dr. Manhattan spent a majority of his time conducting research experiments, resulting in numerous scientific breakthroughs that benefited mankind and the environment. In many of his experiments, Dr. Manhattan partnered with Adrian Veidt, the smartest and wealthiest man in the world, as well as the former crime fighter known as Ozymandias. Veidt once invited Dr. Manhattan to join a failed superhero team known as the Crime Busters, where Dr. Manhattan first met the young Lori Jispachik, aka Silk Spectre, who inherited her crime-fighting mantle from her mother, the model/superheroine Sally Jupiter. Since Dr. Manhattan did not age, he grew disinterested in the aging Janie Slater and began a love affair with Lori. Laurie eventually moved in with Dr. Manhattan at the Rockefeller Military Research Center, where they were eventually visited by the vigilante Rorschach to warn them of a killer targeting former crime fighters. Rorschach's conspiracy eventually led to the discovery that Veidt framed Dr. Manhattan for radiation poisoning J.D. Slater and other former colleagues, a scandal that caused Dr. Manhattan to abandon Earth for Mars, while Veidt plotted an extraterrestrial invasion hoax that would unite the world's hostile nations and stem mankind's nuclear extinction. Dr. Manhattan brought Laurie to Mars, where she convinced him to return to Earth and save mankind, after he realized she was the product of an unlikely union between her mother, Sally, and Edward Blake, aka the Comedian, a crime fighter who raped Sally early in their superhero career. After decades of growing more and more apathetic toward humanity, Dr. Manhattan realized the miraculous nature of Laurie's existence as a product of a later union between Sally and Edward, which in turn made him realize the miraculous nature of all conscious beings. He and Laurie returned to Earth too late, however, and a giant fake alien squid-type being had violently appeared in the middle of New York City, exploding and killing half of its population. Dr. Manhattan traced the energy signature of the fake alien to Veidt's Antarctic base, Karnak, where Veidt was successful in tricking Dr. Manhattan into another intrinsic field trap. Dr. Manhattan's body was once again ripped apart, but he was able to reconstitute himself in minutes and confronted Veidt. Veidt revealed that his plan had brought peace and unity to the world, however, and Dr. Manhattan was forced to kill Rorschach to prevent Veidt's secret from being uncovered, ruining the peace. With a newfound respect for life, Dr. Manhattan left the Milky Way galaxy for one less complicated, and to create life of his own. During his travels through the cosmos and the multiverse, Dr. Manhattan discovered the Prime DC universe, which he dubbed the Metaverse, as changes to its fabric and timeline affected every other universe in existence. He was obsessed with Superman especially, as his quantum perception of time ended with an enraged Superman punching him, leading Dr. Manhattan to conclude that either Superman kills him or he himself destroys the metaverse and thus all universes. In noticing the consistently shifting timeline of the metaverse during his observations, Dr. Manhattan interfered with Barry Allen's correction of the Flashpoint timeline at the end of that storyline. This interference resulted in the New 52 reboot of continuity, which seemingly stole at least 10 years away from the universe's history and erased almost everyone's memory. Dr. Manhattan interfered with the timeline on several more occasions, erasing the Justice Society of America from existence and saving Superman's father, Jor-El, from Krypton's destruction. But with the re-emergence of Wally West, who you can learn more about in our Wally West Flash vs. Speedball episode, Dr. Manhattan's actions had become apparent to the metaverse's superheroes, and though almost the entirety of Earth's heroes were unable to defeat Dr. Manhattan, in the latest issue of Doomsday Clock, Superman himself finally confronts Dr. Manhattan. The last issue of Doomsday Clock hits comic shops the day after this episode drops, so if you want to know how the story ends, make sure you pick up Doomsday Clock number 12. Powers-wise, Dr. Manhattan is nigh omnipotent. He can manipulate matter and energy. He is invulnerable, he can go intangible, he can fly, he can regenerate his entire body if it's destroyed, he can change his size, he can emit radiation and electricity, he can teleport, he can duplicate himself and alter his appearance, he doesn't age, he doesn't need to eat, sleep, or breathe. He can create life, and his senses are acute enough to perceive events so small and fast that they could be said to not have existed at all. Most importantly, he knows how this match is going to play out before it even begins, as he has a fifth-dimensional view of his own time.
Oh, so he's not even going to try then because he already knows he's going to lose?
No, he sees his win, obviously.
We'll see. All right, let me go ahead and get into Molecule Man, who many of our listeners may not be familiar with. I know you, Jonathan, are not.
Nope. I don't even know if he's a good guy or bad guy.
He's a bad guy, although he's done heroic feats before. Now, to know Owen Reese, the Molecule Man, is to first know who the Beyonders are. The Beyonders exist outside the reality of the multiverse and are omnipotent beings with the power to create and destroy entire universes with a thought. Once, the evil organization known as AIM made just the slightest of breaches into the Beyonders dimension, and with even that small amount of energy, they created the Cosmic Cube, one of the most powerful weapons in Marvel that could be used to conquer a universe. These Beyonders were experimental by nature, often provoking cosmic events to satisfy their curiosity. Owen Reese, the Molecule Man, was central to their greatest experiment, the largest experiment of all time. Though for most of his life, he was just a regular man. Owen was born in Dinosaur, Colorado, to a single mother. Have you ever been to Dinosaur, Colorado?
I know of like Dinosaur Ridge.
Yeah, Dinosaur, Colorado is up in the far northwest near Utah, just south of the Dinosaur National Monument. It only has a population of like 300 people.
Oh, nice Colorado shout out there.
Hell yeah. Now, Owen was shy in nature. He was often dismissed or ridiculed by his peers. Striving to be noticed, he studied to become a lab technician and got a job at the Acme Atomics Corporation in Brooklyn, New York. While staying late at work one day fixing an experimental atomic device, he accidentally triggered an explosion that seared lightning bolt-shaped scars onto his face and opened a pinprick-sized hole between his dimension and the Beyonders. The mishap bombarded him with the same energy that created the Cosmic Cube, and like the cube, he was filled with infinite power. But much like how a Cosmic Cube requires practice and skill to use effectively, it took Owen some time before he became aware of his full potential. He was fired from his job for causing the accident, and in his anger, he plotted to take over New York City. One of his early limitations was that, after discovering he had the ability to affect matter at the subatomic level, he thought the power could only be controlled through a magic wand, and that he could only affect inorganic matter. So in his initial fight against the Fantastic Four, he was defeated when the team disguised themselves as statues and stole his wand.
What?
He eventually retrieved the wand, and after hearing the story of the Silver Surfer, he decided that he was going to devour the Earth just like Galactus. The Avengers joined the Silver Surfer in attempting to stop him. However, they were all easily defeated when Owen disintegrated Captain America's shield, Iron Man's armor, Thor's hammer, and the Silver Surfer's board.
Dang.
In the end, it was Tigra that saved the day by convincing Owen that instead of consuming Earth, he could use his powers to help people. He ended up surrendering to the authorities and promised to see a therapist. Unfortunately, soon after, he was one of the many heroes and villains that were plucked from Earth by a Beyonder to do battle against each other on Battleworld. This Beyonder was a young member of the omnipotent race who was pulled into the Marvel Universe by a group of scientist villains, and he became fascinated with the human concepts of morality and heroism. His Battleworld experiment was to find out who would win in a battle between the forces of good and evil in a secret war. Though the Beyonder ordered Owen and the other villains to attack and defeat the recruited heroes, Owen instead sided with Dr. Doom, who rejected the Beyonder's experiment. As stated in our Superman vs. Dr. Doom episode, Doom was over time able to steal the power of the Beyonder. Owen assumed Doom had turned on everyone and was the only person powerful enough to confront him. Instead of fighting, Doom helped Owen realize his full powerful potential and that his abilities were nearly limitless. Using this knowledge, Owen transported himself and his newfound lover, named Volcana, back to Earth and away from Battleworld. And though he tried to live a quiet, peaceful life in Denver, Colorado, it was not the last time that he would have to deal with a Beyonder, who one day returned to Earth to find emotional fulfillment as a mortal being. Owen teamed up with the Earth's heroes to stop him from destroying the universe in the process, and diverted the godlike Beyonder's energy into the Beyonder's dimension from which it came. He also used his powers to repair all the damage the Beyonder had caused on Earth, and then subsequently retired from supervillainy and heroics for a time. Up until this point, Owen was often pitted against the Beyonder simply because he was one of the only beings powerful enough to stop him. Ironically, he later learned about the truth of his origin, how his power derived from the energy of the Beyonders when his lab accident exposed him to their dimension. This was revealed to Owen by a being named Cubic, who was a cosmic cube that had gained sentience. Owen and the Beyonder met once again and combined their powers to create a new cube, which they believed would hatch another sentience like Cubic. And it eventually did, creating the being known as Cosmos. Despite this, Owen ended up fighting the Beyonder again across time, space, and dimensions, nearly destroying the universe before being stopped by Cubic. Owen later settled back down in his hometown of Dinosaur, Colorado, where he controlled the local populace and disintegrated anyone who visited. This caught the attention of Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers, whom Molecule Man made short work of, including the Sentry. However, the Sentry reformed his body and seemingly slayed Owen, though Owen was able to reform his body later on as well. He was revived by Dr. Doom, who knew that Owen's powers might be the key in stopping the incursions of realities that were slowly destroying the multiverse. It was revealed that across the multiverse, all the alternate versions of Owen underwent the same power transformation at the exact same moment in time. Owen's origin was a planned occurrence by the Beyonders race, who in recreating Owen as the Molecule Man, created a being who could destroy the universe. They planted in each version of him a fuse that they would one day set off as an experiment to see what would happen when every reality in the multiverse abruptly came to an end simultaneously. Alongside Doom, Owen hatched a plot to ruin the Beyonders' plan by killing alternate versions of himself and destroying universes prematurely, all in an effort to use that energy to kill the Beyonders themselves and save their own reality. The result was the latest Secret Wars, where Dr. Doom ruled over a patchwork universe composited into a new battleworld as its supreme emperor god. He was granted the power through Owen, who had harnessed the energy of the destroyed Beyonders and funneled it into Dr. Doom. Owen had no loyalty to Doom, however, and after a time ended up bestowing the Beyonders' power to Mr. Fantastic, whom Doom admitted would wield the power better. Using this power, Mr. Fantastic recreated the multiverse, with the assistance of his son Franklin Richards and Owen. Powers-wise, Molecule Man is often described as the most powerful being in the Marvel Universe, capable of destroying beings like Galactus with a thought. He can mentally control, transform, and otherwise manipulate the atomic structure of all matter and energy across any distance. This can manifest as animating inanimate objects, changing objects into different forms and substances, such as air into glass. He can create energy constructs and force fields, wormholes through space for universal travel, and he once recreated an entire galaxy that the Beyonder destroyed. Weakness-wise, for as powerful as he is, he's just a man with a man's brain, and often finds that his mental capacity is not strong enough to endure such power within him, and he often deteriorates into madness. And that's the Molecule Man. So now you know about him. What do you think?
I think Dr. Manhattan does not deteriorate into madness.
He kind of did with his apathy, I think. It's a different sort of madness. It's not like crazy. It's more just like uncaring. Too logical, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've gone over the backstories and abilities of each of the characters, what we like to do is speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulations that we run will play out.
Right, we don't set any rules for this particular speculation, but we do say that the characters don't know anything about each other, save for the fact that the other one is a threat. They also start about 50 yards apart from each other on the battlefield, which just seems weird to say. I mean, I guess unlike our Spectre versus Galactus episode where we couldn't really pit them 50 yards apart from each other because they're just so both gigantic.
Right.
Both of these guys can manifest themselves as just regular men. So they actually can start about 50 yards apart from each other on a battlefield that plays no part in the battle itself. Because we don't take stats for the environment, and sometimes certain environments give advantages to certain characters over the other, and we want to say that these characters win on their own merits. Now, in this particular matchup, that statement makes no sense because these guys can create any environment that they want to.
Exactly.
And they probably will. So this will be fun. Let's go ahead and get into it. Dr. Manhattan versus Molecule Man start off 50 yards apart from each other. I'm a little bit scared. Who goes first?
Yeah, you're scared. You should be scared. I'm scared too. We'll be scared together. Because honestly, I'm not even sure what the first move is going to be.
Oh, I'll tell you what it's going to be. Since Molecule Man is a little bit more wild and a little bit less calculating, he's going to go first by putting some pants on Dr. Manhattan's body. Because he does not want to see his dick.
Well, Dr. Manhattan doesn't like to wear clothes, so he just turns those pants invisible. Deal with it.
Well, annoyed that he can still see Dr. Manhattan's dick, he turns him into a Ken doll, basically. He just erases Dr. Manhattan's junk from existence. So he's essentially sexless now.
And you know what? I think Dr. Manhattan is okay with that. He doesn't care.
All right, good. All right.
And Dr. Manhattan responds in turn by causing Molecule Man's entire body to explode into a million pieces.
Okay.
Boom. Nailed it. Nice and simple.
That's like the only thing Dr. Manhattan can do. Right? So essentially, he just ripped Molecule Man apart by his molecules.
Yeah.
But each of those molecules is now its own Molecule Man. That's how Owen uses his powers.
What?
So now he's like the real Molecule Man. So there's like a billion of him just swarming around Dr. Manhattan, which, Dr. Manhattan can perceive because he can see microscopic events like that.
Right.
And what these billions of Molecule Men do is they enter into Dr. Manhattan's body through his butthole, which is exposed.
Oh, is this like an Ant-Man Thanos thing?
Yes, it is. And then Molecule Man forms into one, expands, and makes Dr. Manhattan explode through his rectum,
Jeez.
destroying him.
Okay, except as he feels that this is happening, this is very uncomfortable, he just teleports away.
Well, now Molecule Man is regretting having ever gone up there.
Exactly. So Dr. Manhattan saw that there were a bunch of little tiny Molecule Men. So he's going to kind of take that as inspiration and duplicate himself. He just makes like an army of Dr. Manhattan around the newly constituted Molecule Man, and simultaneously, each one of them blasts Molecule Man.
Blast him with what?
I don't know, like electromagnetic energy.
Well, Molecule Man holds up his hand like Neo, and he's like, no. And with just a wave of his hand, he sends all the energy flying directly back at the Dr. Manhattan army and just causes them all to blow up.
Okay, but the first trick that Dr. Manhattan learned was to reform his atoms. So that's what he does. He just reforms himself back into one being. At which point he creates like this massive like clockwork prison around Molecule Man that's made up of like solidified gravity or something, like this impenetrable force.
A prison made out of impenetrable gravity force? That's interesting. So it's probably like pulling Molecule Man in all sorts of directions and stuff, yeah? While he's trapped inside of it?
Yeah, it's probably like warping his body in ways that like a three-dimensional being probably couldn't understand.
Okay, well, Molecule Man kind of like compresses this gravitational energy and himself into a black hole, through which he travels and comes out behind Dr. Manhattan in kind of like a wormhole teleportation.
Uh-huh.
And he forms like this 150 million ton mountain above the head of Dr. Manhattan and just crushes him.
Okay, so there's this mountain in place of where Dr. Manhattan used to be.
Yes, yes.
And then you just see Dr. Manhattan like phase right through to the top, and now he's standing at the top of the mountain.
Oh, God.
He just phased right through it. At which point, Dr. Manhattan starts to grow. And I mean like bigger than the mountain, okay? Big enough so that the mountain just like sits in his palm. And he just uses it to smash Molecule Man into the ground.
Except Owen doesn't get smashed by some rock because he's growing as well. But he's not only growing, he's like turning his entire body into energy, like plasma, like that of the sun. So he's like this huge giant plasma man.
Uh-huh.
Who, with the force of a trillion stars, just punches Dr. Manhattan right in the face.
But Dr. Manhattan isn't going to be like affected by plasma. He's walked on the surface of the sun before.
But he gets affected by a punch to the face, so he may not be burned, but I mean, if Superman could punch him, Molecule Man can certainly punch him. So he just got punched.
Well, that just pisses him off, okay? Now he's showing some emotion. Then he super cools the plasma, transforming it into ice, like an ice sculpture. And then he punches Molecule Man's head, just knocking it off his body.
And the head that fell off just starts laughing, because he doesn't need his head.
The heck is this?
His body still moves, and he kicks Dr. Manhattan right in the balls.
Oh, you mean right in the area that you turned into a Ken doll?
Oh, shit. That's right. So Dr. Manhattan's just like, nuh-uh, nothing there.
That's when Dr. Manhattan summons like this cosmic storm of like lightning and radiation. It all just plows right into Molecule Man, just like sending him careening through the galaxy.
So Molecule Man's like flying backward, being blasted by all this energy, but then he just snaps his fingers, and all of a sudden, everything changes. The entire reality.
What?
Dr. Manhattan blinks and finds himself no longer blue-skinned, strapped down in a hospital bed, and alongside him are all the people in his life that he believed that he gave cancer to, like Janie Slater, his scientist friend, all the Watchmen.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's a psychic attack.
You can't read Dr. Manhattan's mind, though.
Sure he can.
Okay, but you have to realize that Dr. Manhattan is going to see through this illusion.
Why?
Because of the way he perceives time. This illusion is not going to last. Because right away, when it happens, Dr. Manhattan knows what his future is already going to hold, so he snaps this illusion out of existence.
Except Dr. Manhattan doesn't know what's going to unfold because Molecule Man creates a nuclear explosion that forms these tachyons that render Dr. Manhattan's time vision useless. So yeah, he changes reality to put Dr. Manhattan in a hospital bed where he's dying of cancer next to all of his friends, and then he creates the nuclear explosion. And this nuclear explosion happens like right outside the hospital. So not only does Dr. Manhattan see his friends dying of cancer, he also sees all of his friends vaporized and himself vaporized, and there's nothing left but dust. Match over.
What a weird scenario.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so I imagine that Molecule Man is just like there in the rubble and the aftermath.
Right.
Okay, he's probably, pretty confident and pretty happy that he just won the match, except that this whole thing has been taking place in the palm of Dr. Manhattan's hand. Molecule Man has been fighting a Manhattan duplicate this whole time. That's when Dr. Manhattan just clenches his fist and destroys all of reality, including Molecule Man.
Oh, he thinks he does, but then it turns out that he's been in the palm of Molecule Man's hand this entire time.
You can't copy a copy. This will just go on for infinity.
Maybe it does go on for infinity.
Boom. Mind blown.
All right, I think there's no other place to take this matchup, so let's go ahead and run the statistics on these guys and find out which one is the winner. Fight between Dr. Manhattan and Molecule Man makes my brain hurt.
As it should. These are two of the most powerful characters in their respective universes.
I mean, it was similar to the Spectre versus Galactus fight that we had, but when you consider that these are both men with previous lives in human histories, it added an interesting dynamic to the fight itself. But stats-wise, Dr. Manhattan and Molecule Man are also literally off the charts.
They're both extremely powerful, and were pretty tit for tat when it came to comparing stats.
Yeah, in terms of movement speed, they can both teleport through black holes.
They can both be anywhere they want to be.
Faster than light travel. Strength, they can lift all the things. They can lift planets. Neither of them are very experienced fighters, hand-to-hand fighters, so we give them kind of low fighting skill stats.
But they're maxed out on damage.
Right, exactly. Their powers can reach across dimensions and universes, so obviously their range is maxed out.
One thing they varied pretty greatly on, though, however, is strategic intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, Molecule Man is not the brightest crayon in the box. I'll say that.
Dr. Manhattan, not only was he smart as a man, he got his PhD, but because of the way he perceives time, he's not omniscient by any means, because he is only dependent on his own experiences, but he is highly aware of all things that are going on around him, not only in this moment, but throughout his entire life. And he can't change the future because to him there is no future. It's all one simultaneous kind of moment.
It's already happened, essentially.
Exactly. But it puts him at an awareness level that Molecule Man isn't always at.
Sounds about right. That being said, I'm not very confident that Molecule Man is going to win this one, but, you always factor randomization into these results. Followers on Instagram, they took a poll stating who they thought would win between these two characters, and 77% of them said that they thought Dr. Manhattan would win.
Which isn't surprising. I mean, the Instagram and Facebook polls are popularity contests, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But in this case, the more popular character did win.
I figured.
And he saw it coming. Dr. Manhattan beat Molecule Man 74.6% of the 1,000 matches.
Wow.
So Molecule Man only won 254 matches.
Well, his intelligence really played that much of a factor, huh?
Well, it was a big gap in intelligence.
Is there no accounting for the unpredictability that craziness brings? I guess not when you can see through time, huh?
No.
All right.
Not at all.
Darn. Well, despite the horrible disparity between those figures, I still think that this was a good matchup, and probably one of the better matchups that I could have picked to go up against Dr. Manhattan.
I can't imagine we'll ever do another match with characters as powerful as these guys are.
Yeah, because you really don't get more powerful than this.
Although I'm not going to lie, this is going to be really embarrassing if Dr. Manhattan gets killed by a Superman punch.
Yeah, then this whole thing will be a sham, and I'll be sure to bring that up in our next episode.
Which is going to be a review of Watchmen Season 1.
Yeah, if you guys haven't been watching that show on HBO yet, definitely check it out. It is amazing so far. I'm only on episode 6 right now. Still have a few more to go, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. It's a great follow-up to the book that ties into the original Watchmen story in ways that I never would have thought of.
I'm still kind of torn whether or not I prefer this as the sequel to Watchmen or Doomsday Clock, because they're both really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably be making a few comparisons in our next episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Go ahead and reach out to us, guys. Let us know what you thought about this episode on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And you can find links to all of our social media accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
Which If you visit our website within the few days after this episode drops, you'll still get to partake in the massive sale that TeePublic is running right now.
Yeah, the sale's going on until December 18th, so if you need a last-minute gift that's Marvel or DC related, such as like a t-shirt or a mug or a pillow or a phone case, something like that, check out our shop.
All of the items there make terrific gifts for Marvel and DC fans alike.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already, guys, and if you have, please share us with your friends and family or rate us or review us if you can. It's always nice.
Special thank you to our executive producers, John Spees and Bodo Winter.
And that does it for this episode. We'll talk to you guys next week. Be sure to catch up on Watchmen.
And up and away.
True believers.